You know those tiny little specks or cobwebs that sometimes just drift across your vision? Ever wonder what on earth they are? Well, the answer is hiding deep inside your own eye, in this kind of mysterious invisible jelly that plays a huge role in how you see the world. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this hidden part of our own bodies. I mean, seriously, think about that. Your eyeball isn't hollow. A full 4/5 of it is filled up with something. So what is this stuff, and what's it even doing in there? All right, let's get to the bottom of this. We are going to dive right in and explore this fascinating gel-like structure that is absolutely essential for our sight. And here it is. The official name is the Vitreous Humour. Now, let's just break that down because it sounds complicated. Transparent. Well, that's a no-brainer. Light has to pass through it. Avascular, what does that mean? It means it has 0 blood vessels, and that's critical, right? Any blood vessel would cast a shadow and mess up your vision. And gelatinous, well, it's pretty much the jello of your eye. Now, you'd think this special gel would be some kind of complex chemical soup, but get this, it's 99% water. Just plain old water. It's the other 1%, this tiny microscopic web of collagen and something called hyaluronic acid that does all the heavy lifting. It's like magic, giving the vitreous that unique jelly texture and holding the whole thing together. So what does this big bag of jelly actually do? Well, it's got 3 really important jobs. First, being perfectly clear lets light get to the retina, no problem. But it also acts like a gentle cushion, providing this constant, soft pressure that holds your delicate retina flat against the back of the eye. And finally, it's what gives your eyeball its round shape. You can think of it as the eye's internal scaffolding. But this gel isn't just one uniform blob of goo. If we could zoom right in, we'd see that it actually has its own distinct parts, its own anatomy. So the vitreous is kind of structured in layers. The outer part, the cortical vitreous, is like the skin of a grape. It's a denser, tougher shell. The inside, the nucleus, that's the softer, true gel core. And the whole thing is anchored in place by these super thin, almost invisible hyaloid membranes that connect it to the lens up front and the retina in the back. For most of our lives, the vitreous just does its job, quietly, in the background. But just like the rest of us, it changes as we get older. And this is where we finally get to the bottom of those mysterious floaters that so many of us see. It all starts with a process called liquefaction. It sounds really technical, but all it means is that over time, that firm vitreous gel starts to break down and turn into a liquid. Seriously, it's like a bowl of Jell-O that you just leave out for decades, and it slowly turns back into water. So, here's how it happens. As the gel turns to liquid, these little watery pockets start to form inside the vitreous. Now, those little collagen fibers that used to be spread out perfectly, they start to clump together inside these pockets. And even though these clumps are microscopic, they're big enough to cast tiny little shadows on your retina. And those shadows, that's what you see as floaters. They aren't actually floating in front of your eye, they're shadows being cast inside it. So seeing floaters, especially as you get older, is incredibly common. For most people, it's just a normal, totally harmless sign that your vitreous is going through its natural aging process. Yeah, they can be annoying, but they're usually nothing to worry about. Okay, but sometimes this whole aging process can lead to something a lot more sudden, a lot more dramatic happening inside your eye. This event is called a Posterior Vitreous Detachment, or PVD for short. As the vitreous gets more watery, the whole gel sac can kind of shrink and collapse in on itself, and when it does that, it pulls that back membrane away from the retina. Think of it like a suction cup that's been stuck to a window for years, and then one day, pop, it just lets go. That's a PVD, and it's super common. It happens to more than half of us by the time we're 80. All right, so if floaters are normal, and even this whole PVD thing is usually normal, how are you supposed to know when something is actually wrong? When is it something dangerous? What are the red flags you absolutely cannot ignore? If you experience any of these, you need to see an eye doctor right away. I'm serious. A sudden shower of brand new floaters could mean there's a bleed. Seeing flashes of light can mean the vitreous is pulling too hard on your retina. And a dark curtain or shadow coming across your vision, that could be a retinal detachment, which is a true medical emergency. So, those red flags usually point to one of 2 big problems. You have a vitreous hemorrhage, that's bleeding into the gel, which causes that storm of new floaters, Or, even more serious, a retinal detachment. That's when the vitreous pulls so hard it actually tears the retina, letting fluids sneak behind it and peel it away from the back of the eye. The good news is we have ways to deal with these more severe problems. So how are these conditions actually treated? Now, while most of these issues are just part of aging, for some people it can actually be genetic. There are inherited conditions like Wagner's and Stickler syndrome that can cause the vitreous to break down way too early. This puts people at a much higher risk for really serious problems like retinal detachment and much earlier in life. For the really serious stuff like a major bleed or a detachment, the main solution is a surgery called a vitrectomy. Surgeons literally go into the eye and remove the damaged or shrunken vitreous gel. This clears out any blood and, more importantly, it relieves any pulling on the retina so it can be repaired. And that brings us right back to the most important question, doesn't it? Most of us will get floaters, and most of the time, they're fine. They're just part of life. The key is knowing the difference between a simple annoyance and a real red flag, like that sudden storm of new spots or flashes of light. Knowing when to just relax and when to pick up the phone, that's the kind of knowledge that could literally save your sight.